Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Perspective with Viv podcast. My name is Viv, and this is the show. Today's title is Raw Healing with Natalie Bedard, aka NatNat. Natalie Bedard, lovingly known as NatNat, is an emotional healing specialist and nervous system guide and the founder of Lift Oneself. Through her trauma-informed and trauma-competent approach, she guides individuals toward emotional sobriety, helping them regulate their nervous systems, release emotional pain, and come home to themselves. She's also the host of the Lift Oneself podcast, a sanctuary of raw conversations, somatic reflections, and soulful meditations. Whether she's guiding a breathwork session or speaking from her scars, NatNat brings presence that lingers long after the mic turns off. Wow, what an intro. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for joining me this lovely day.
I appreciate being here and I'm excited to do this deep dive with you. And when people say my intro, I'm like, who are they talking about? And it's like, oh yeah, it's me. I tend to sometimes forget the work that I've done and the space that I hold for others. So thank you for having me and trusting me with your listeners.
It's my pleasure. I'm so excited to have you here, honestly, and I'm ready for our conversations. Even the title, what do you think of it? Raw Healing? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to, we do our inner healing in levels and in ways, yet if we really want to get to the crux, it's the raw healing. It's being able to face ourselves and feel those emotions and create that safety. Yet the main thing is having that safety. If we don't feel
Yes.
safe to feel these emotions, to be vulnerable and to be open, it will do detriment to us. So I say the
Definitely.
raw healing so that people can better understand themselves. Because people think healing is like a healed and I'll never have to experience anything and I won't have any pain and I'll have it all together. And it's like, well, no, like you're still human and life is still going to life. It's being able to feel your feelings and not shut them off and allow them not to hijack your behavior, which takes a lot of work and a lot of presence. Yet, if you're honest with yourself and you can better verbalize what's going on in your inner state, it makes a world of difference.
Definitely. Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you describe your work as helping people return home to themselves. Can you walk us into what that means for you and maybe what it doesn't mean?
Well, returning home to yourself is being able to drop into your body. Many of us are neck up, and so we think our emotions. We don't actually feel our feelings and we don't feel our emotions. So when we are returning home, it's being able to drop into that nervous system, to drop into that body and create safety that we're okay to be vulnerable. We're okay to feel the totality of all of our emotions. Many of us as a young child, when we felt some big emotions, we were told that they weren't safe to feel and to feel something other than what we were feeling. So then we learned to not trust those big emotions and we started creating a narration to label those big emotions as unsafe. So, like, for instance, anger or feeling sadness, some of those emotions, some people don't even know how to be authentic with because it has been stigmatized or they were told it wasn't safe, or I'll give you something to feel to have those emotions. So then they've labeled it and then they've created a separation from self. They've created a separation from the body because when it comes up, it's like, no, 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 and push it down. And that's why they can go into loopholes or their behaviors can be a certain way because they don't know how to deal with the conflict that's going on inside. So what I help is provide a space of return back into your body and create this homeostasis, create a space where you can feel these emotions and you can give verbiage to them.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, what you're talking about is how people are failing to identify with their emotions to feel to heal. So they
Mhm.
do certain things or adopt certain protective patterns. So
Mhm.
what are protective patterns and how do they show up in ways you might not even realize? Can you share a moment from your own life when you recognized one? I know that that's three parts in one, so I'll say it again. What are protective patterns and how do they show up in ways you might not even realize? And can you share a moment from your own life when you recognized one?
See, for me, I can only describe it within the body. So when I know that I'm triggered, I know that there's a stiffness and a rigidness in my body. So fear has been activated, and I feel like I'm in a prison or I feel like I'm in a straitjacket. So I can feel that I'm rigid, I'm not humorous, I'm taking things really seriously. And usually when I'm in that state, it's because I'm in my parenting role and one of my children have mirrored something that I don't want to feel or experience. So I have, in the a decade that I've been doing this deep work with myself, I'm able to connect with my body and identify that, oh, I've been triggered and a pattern has been activated, and now I want to interrupt that pattern. Sometimes I'm very successful at it. Other times I'm still evolving because there's no arrival to this. So being able to be there for myself using the tools of slowing down, connecting in my breath, and being able to acknowledge of asking myself, what am I feeling? What is going on in my inner state? To have this kind of dialogue and awareness and observation within. You have to tell me the other two parts of your question because I got into the pattern, but what were the other two?
How do they show up in ways you might not even realize? And can you share a moment from your own life when you recognized one?
Well, I did kinda show that with my parenting and, so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I was criticized a lot when I was a child, and so that narration and that inner critic is built in me. So when the twins are going through something, I'll criticize, yet I know the language is not to do that, so most times I'm not, yet I still get activated in that. And then they'll push back when I am yelling or I am in a way, and it's like, "Why are you yelling? Why are you angry?" And it's like, "I'm not." And then I have to stop and acknowledge, "Oh, I've been activated. Okay, yeah, you're right. I am yelling. Why am I yelling?" And then explain why I'm yelling. And that's the safety that I've been able to create for myself to be vulnerable, to explain. Because most times as parents, we'll be like, no, I'm not yelling. You're yelling, and I'm not doing anything wrong. Where it's being able to be honest with myself. So I've created that safety within with my children that they can call things out and not be pounced on. Sometimes I still pounce, yet they understand that they can call me out on it. And then it's for my work to untangle that and to open up, if that makes sense and can describe it in, a really lived experience. Outside of the parenting, say when I was working and I would get feedback that I had did something wrong, within my system, that felt like a threat that I was stupid and I was not knowing what I was doing because as a child, one of my teachers criticized me as being stupid. So that narration still gets ingrained. So when there is a feedback of me making a mistake, I automatically jump to, oh, this teacher told me I was stupid, so they must know better than I do. So working through those patterns has allowed me, when being in the body, to see that these patterns have activated inside. Yet it's taken a long time to be able to, create trust in my body to reveal these patterns to myself.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's profound on so many levels because one thing that stuck out to me was that you've created a safe space for your twins to call you out, for there to be some form of transparency and accountability. And when you hear it, you said that you untangle those things. And honestly, it goes a long way because obviously with parenting, with childhood, it's the way we are raised, it's the environment that we're in that creates a nervous system that we go to have. And
Yeah.
it's also what determines who we become as people and whether that in itself is us becoming people that are able to express ourselves, to feel our emotions, or people that shut down everything in order to keep the peace. So I like that you explained it that way and that you've created that sort of environment for your twins. Beautiful. So, you use the term emotional sobriety. What does it mean to be emotionally sober? And how is that different from just being emotionally in control?
Well, it's not to control your emotions.
Mm.
You see, we get into performative of we need to look a certain way when we're feeling our emotions. So that's why we control and we don't allow a real authenticity of feeling all of our emotions without drowning in them. So the
Hmm.
emotional sobriety is creating a space to feel those authentic emotions, and it's going to be messy at first. Your image is going to get shattered. Your behavior is going to get hijacked. Yet when you allow these charges to come out of your body, then you can hear the messages and they're not activating so much. So then you can have a sobriety and you're not running for the drink. You're not running to get on social media. You're not running to go have sex. You're not running to go get the validation. You can be there with yourself and hold that space for yourself and be able to co-regulate with yourself. Yet it doesn't mean like, oh, you're going to be this person that's going to be all independent. We're here to be interdependent and to lean on each other and hold space. Yet there is a narrative that other people trigger us, and that's not true. We are in charge of all of our buttons. So if we're not taking responsibility of when we're activated with emotions, we think other people are supposed to soothe us when actually that's our responsibility. When we were younger, yes, the caretakers were supposed to hold a space so that we could feel these emotions and process and regulate and soothe. And as you said, many of us didn't have that secure attachment. We didn't have those safe environments. So we get dysregulated and we have all these behaviors. The return home is I can feel these emotions and not always have to run to numb it, that I can feel the fullness and not disconnect from myself. Yeah, there's levels to it. Like this isn't about perfection. It's about being honest of where you are. If you're still going to reach for the drink, at least acknowledge, oh, I'm reaching for the drink because I'm feeling stressed and I don't know how to feel this for myself. I don't know how to be honest of what's activating the stress. I'm not able to articulate what I can do differently because I'm in a pattern of thinking it's only like this and that's all I can stay in. So it's not this all or nothing that, oh, go cold turkey. If you can, sure, that's going to bring you to some emotional sobriety. And I did that in my life. I've done warrior work of removing spending, removing sex, removing alcohol, and changing the whole dynamic, which I was engaged to do that. I don't recommend it for everybody because if you don't have the tools, you're going to unleash on a lot of people around you because your nervous system is always trying to protect you. So the emotional sobriety allows you to have context about your biology, not in criticism, it's in context. We forget context when we're activated and say we told somebody off and we don't want to be that. We want to be so gentle and kumbaya. Yet it's like, well, give yourself context. Were you overstimulated? Were you overloaded? Was your capacity really shrunk that you just lost your behavior? You're human. You're allowed to be human. It's not about being perfect. It's about how are you going to do the repair and how are you going to do the return to being accountable and doing better moving forward.
So true, so true. I totally agree with what you're saying. And you're really hitting all the right points because each thing you're saying is activating me as a person. And I'm like, yeah, like I have to create a safe space for myself to feel emotions. It's easy to reach out to things to kind of like distract you. But at one point, you have to stop distracting yourself and sit with these emotions in order to regulate and to feel less burdened by what you're carrying. Because regardless of the fact that we hide from these emotions or we push them away, they're still there, they still carry weight and they'll still show themselves in different ways, which is why, yes, people use sex, alcohol, drugs, different things to deflect from what they're actually feeling. And that's
Mhm,
what you're talking about, which is really beautiful because for me, in your work, you guide people through nervous system regulation. And that's something that
mhm,
is so important for me as a person because I grew up with a nervous system that was very, very high strung. I was always in flight mode or fight
mhm,
mode, and it was
mhm.
just not healthy for me. What do we get wrong about healing the nervous system? And what does this process really look like day to day?
Well, sometimes people think healing is like being zen and peaceful the whole time, and that's not a healthy nervous system. A nervous system needs to get dysregulated and regulated. Like we live in a world that is unsafe. So our nervous system has to be able to gauge the information that's going on. It's just that, as you explained, your nervous system was wired to be in a high state of dysregulation, of always being hyper focused on what's safe and what's not. And so that fight or flight was a lot of psychosomatic. You were creating narrations to try to control the environment rather than be in the environment and remember that you have the capacity and tools. And we try to control the environment, but there's no way of controlling the environment. You can try to bark or do certain things. It only lasts for so long till you realize the power is within yourself to create that safety. So recognizing that, being gentle with yourself, being honest, and actually integrating the fear. It's not about love or fear. It's about being both. Love is this, spirit and soul, yet the fear is your humanity of a nervous system. And you want to integrate the two. Like, we get told that humanity is sinful and that it is such a disgrace to be human, where it's like, where is the compassion and kindness towards the human experience? Where can we integrate the two so that we can be alive in this? It's not choosing one or the other and bypassing things. It's about creating a homeostasis of honesty for yourself. Yet to understand your own biology takes honesty. And as you said, yes, at a certain point, it's to feel your emotions. Yet what helps with an elixir and why I do the work that I do is the witnessing. When you can be in your emotions in your raw state, which I say the raw healing, and somebody leans in rather than tries to change your narrative, tell you to be something different, or pulls fully away, that allows you to have acceptance with yourself that, oh, I can feel this stuff and people aren't going to judge me or disconnect from me or tell me to get clothed because we're kind of naked in our vulnerability when we're in our authentic emotions, and that I still feel safe, and that they're not going to create a narrative that I'm incompetent or whatever stories that we create in our mind or what we have experienced from other people. So that witnessing is really impactful. So we're not yeah, okay, meditation, you're doing it on your own. Yet when you can create a tribe in that village of safety and be able to call that person and say, like, you know what, I need 8 minutes of your time. I just need to offload and connect and remind me where my compass is, remind me where my state is, because some of these emotions that I'm feeling and this inner critic is getting too dense that I'm forgetting where my center part is, where my self is, where my vulnerability and my openness is.
That's such a profound answer, honestly. And I agree with everything you've said, honestly. And I keep saying honestly because it's kind of like looking in the mirror, really, to actually see the parts of yourself that you've been able to heal. Because I'm very for nervous system regulation because I'm neurodivergent. I didn't know that I was neurodivergent in addition to having such a high, strong nervous system. Everything was a nightmare for me. I was always overwhelmed, to get to this point where I'm so calm that things that would usually rile me up or get me upset, I'm very, very peaceful in when I see it or experience it. It's such a profound change for me as a person because I wasn't taught how to regulate and I didn't have spaces for co-regulation, which you've mentioned. Because once again, when you feel an emotion and you have somebody that can lean in and recognize that emotion, you feel like you trust yourself and you feel like
Mhm.
you can sit with those emotions because those emotions suddenly feel right because you've gotten that validation. And now I understand the real importance of co-regulation and why having community that is able to hold space for you to co-regulate is also important for your nervous system. Because sometimes we
Mhm.
may not have the tools to do it alone. So co-regulating with somebody
Mhm.
that is on a much calmer frequency really goes a long way. Really goes a long way. And when we come back to childhood, imagine having a mother that is never really calm. So when she's always high strung, always anxious, always, over the top, there's always something that is small, but is seen as big, and
Mhm.
that becomes your norm. And then when you are, in your feelings, you don't have that ability to co-regulate because she's not that container for co-regulation. So you're just moving through life like, high strung, activated by every small thing. It's so unhealthy. So my next question, you help people listen to the body's wisdom. What are some somatic cues or sensations that we should be noticing or begin noticing, especially in moments of emotional intensity?
I just want to come back and thank you for your vulnerability. It shows the work that you've done to stand in your truth and to honor and trust yourself, because that's the return too in a world that tells us to doubt ourselves, that we're not there yet, we don't know what we're doing. That trust is a huge part of regulating that fear that's being activated. So thank you for being relatable and showing people, what's possible, and also just being raw with it. This
Thank
is
you.
what we need in the world.
Thank you.
So, your question again, sorry, I got caught up in what it was. Repeat your question again for me.
You help people listen to the body's wisdom.
Mm.
What are some somatic cues or sensations that we should begin noticing, especially in moments of emotional intensity?
Well, would you allow me and would you join me in a mindful moment so that I can show people what a practice is and a tool?
I would love that, yes.
Okay. And for the listeners, many listen to this while driving or needing their visuals. So please don't close your eyes. Yet the other cues you're able to follow that I'm going to guide us through. So, Viv, I'm going to ask you to get comfortable in your seating. And if it's safe to do so, you're going to gently close your eyes. And if you can't close your eyes, you can just soften your gaze and bring that awareness inwardly. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose, bringing that awareness to watching your breath go in and out. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to allow it to have its own rhythm, which can be a little challenging for the brain. Yet just allow that rhythm to be there and keep with the breath, dropping into that body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. Now, there may be some thoughts or memories or to-do lists that have popped up, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts and dropping deeper into your body, being in the space of presence, of being. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, beginning again, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and completely surrendering into the body, being in the space of being, of presence, continuously checking if your awareness is watching that breath that's always in the now, and allowing your body just to release whatever might be constricted or feeling while staying with that breath. Now, being in your senses, being in the breath at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. So, this mindful moment starts to allow people to feel what's going on in their body. As you asked for, how can they be body aware? It's recognizing, oh, I didn't realize I wasn't breathing profoundly, or I didn't realize there was tension, or I didn't realize there were knots in my stomach, or my chest felt tight. So by doing these little check-ins with our breath, that's where we can start creating that self-awareness within and doing those body scans so that we can unclench and unknot all of that fear and all of those emotions that are supercharged in the body.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because while I was doing it, I was just so aware of so many things I was feeling. And I was like, wow, I don't think things have been silent enough for me to actually understand what I'm feeling. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So you talk about creating safety to feel. What does it actually take to feel safe enough to heal? And how can someone start building that internal safety when the world around them doesn't feel safe?
Well, it's just having a willingness to be honest with yourself and to
Hmm.
start giving yourself permission to feel. And the best way that you can start with that is journaling in a space that you might not feel safe to divulge that to other people. You might not feel safe to go to a therapist because you feel like you're judged, or it might impact your employment.
Yeah.
Or even just the community or culture you're around, they don't accept that. So you will be ostracized from, the tribe or the family. So it's okay, start journaling. Start being curious about what your internal thoughts are. Be open to putting down what you're feeling on paper, even if you're not able to articulate it to yourself. And in there, that's where you start creating this connection back into the body, that the nervous system can start surrendering its defense mechanisms and its hypervigilance and be like, oh, we can disarm, we can open up and be vulnerable. So in those pages, you're able to start better understanding yourself and seeing that sometimes we have a narration, but when we write it down on paper, it no longer makes sense. And then we wonder, well, why does this feel this way? Or why can I not be honest? Or why am I giving it this definition when I read it here? It has a different. So you start to interrupt some of the patterns and the belief systems that have been created. And you start detaching from thinking that you're the nervous system. As you notice in the mindful moment that I did, I created that the awareness and creating space between the thoughts, not shutting the thoughts off, because the brain and the nervous system is doing what it needs to, yet you don't have to identify with them. You can be in that space. Another one that's very profound is dancing. Let the body express itself in movement and not having the analytical mind stop it from feeling. So when we can dance and just dance openly without having it to be structured and all that, there's such a somatic release that the body can finally give it language that it needs to express in movement. And that's where you can start feeling some of these emotions and really relating with yourself in a different way, and being in that elevated state, in that open state, in that light state.
That's beautiful. I resonate to those two things, journaling and dancing, resonate highly. I journal a lot. On this podcast, guests have come on and said journaling is so important. Like journaling saves lives.
Mhm.
Dancing, I like that you said that, because I've had dreams about it. I didn't even need dreams to tell me, but intuitively, I've always been told, dance, let your body feel, let your body move. So thank you for saying that. Those are really good tips.
Yeah, and they're free. Like, these are
Yeah.
all things that we can do, yet it's simple, yet it's not easy to access because we're going through narratives that we're told this work has to be difficult and hard. And it is challenging because you're going through a force field of a very intelligent system, yet it's leaning in and befriending and
Yeah.
integrating and using these tools that you can have access to, but we forget. We just stick with the pattern that we're used to. Yet when we start engaging to interrupt, we see the benefit, but it doesn't come right away all the time. It's little by little that we can navigate through some big tsunamis and big storms, because when those big emotions finally come up in the authenticity of it, it's a tsunami in there. It feels very distorting, and it hijacks your behavior, and it feels yucky and messy. Yet when you allow there to be more space, there's not such a big charge with it. There's not
Hmm.
such a big activation. And like you said, you've went through your process that now the things that used to activate you, They don't bother you anymore because you've done that work of being there for yourself and creating that safety and creating that being back in your wholeness with a W and being in that worth.
Yes, definitely. So many things to say, honestly, but I think the most important thing is knowing that one can always shift from being high strung and anxious to just being calm and at peace. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know that. They don't know.
No.
They don't know the real significance and importance of nervous system healing. It changes everything. Like
Mhm.
my whole life has changed entirely from doing that. And thankfully, I didn't even know I was doing that until I just realized that in a city full of chaos, like the city I live in, Lagos, gosh, the way I maintain peace,
Yeah.
despite all of that, it is so award winning, honestly.
Yeah.
It's award winning. And I'm very proud of myself because I wasn't in that space where everything could activate me back in the day. Everything. That's not the way
Mhm.
to live. So, what are some subtle signs that the nervous system is healing, even if life still feels messy?
You just explained it.
Ooh.
You just explained it exactly how it is. Like like I said, it's not about changing the environment. It's how you can show up in the environment and that you can create safety, that you're not being sucked in by all these different narrations. And anxiety is contagious. So
Yeah.
where you are, survival is a real thing. A lot of people are surviving. They're trying to make currency. They're trying to create this image and fit into that image and don't realize they're running themselves amok to try to create this sense of safety when name brand and materialistic things aren't going to give you safety. It's all an illusion. It's coming within yourself, but that anxiety is a real thing. It's very contagious, and you're not getting swallowed up in it anymore. You're
Yeah.
taking onus of protecting your own energy and acknowledging and advocating for it and always reminding yourself that's their stuff, that's not mine. But let it pass through you. Don't, minimize and point fingers. It's like, "Oh, they're going through," and it's like, "I don't have to go fix. I don't have to go rescue. I also don't have to dim myself. It's just take a moment to pause and feel what I'm feeling and just know that my life force is carrying me through. Come back into my compass, not changing anybody else's compass." And that is warrior work. So you just answered your own question with being vulnerable.
Thank you so much, honestly. And I think I did want to say before was that you said something about that's your stuff, that's not my stuff. That's so significant when we're doing nervous system healing because, as you said, anxiety is contagious. When you're around, and a lot of people that don't know how to emotionally regulate, they don't like when you are emotionally regulated. So that's
Yeah.
why you said it's contagious because then they want you to carry their stuff for them. So I think it's
Mhm.
very important for my listeners to know that honestly, that doesn't fly when you're emotionally regulated. You don't carry what isn't yours. You're aware of your emotional boundaries. You know what is yours and what isn't, and you give everyone else their stuff to carry. It's so important for your nervous system because in childhood, in homes, I think a lot of times because of the emotional environment, we have kids becoming the golden child or the pleaser or the one who does all the serving just to keep the peace. And
Mhm.
so it may work in that home setting, although it's not meant to happen because then you stop being a child. But then when you're an adult, you have that and it just honestly it doesn't create the same positive outcome that you may have at home. And
Yeah.
then you start to have to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's why compassion is important. And I wanted to
Very.
ask you, how can someone start offering themselves compassion if they've never learned how?
My sentence that I started to say because I needed to hear it is remember to be kind to yourself.
Mm,
So I would offer it to other people, but really it was because I needed to hear it to remind myself of the regulation of my nervous system. So when my nervous system gets really activated, it's like a pit bull and there's an inner critic that goes on. And so it's okay, kindness and open up. Acknowledge that you're in fear. Acknowledge what is feeling really dense and uncomfortable in your body. Let there be space to allow it to come into the light, that it doesn't have to hide in the shadows anymore. So that
yes.
radical compassion, that When I see that I did something when I was asleep, meaning that my awareness and my conscious couldn't be in the forefront, that I was in my patterns and behaviors, that when I acknowledge that I've done a wrong, that I don't separate and try to, you know, hide even more deeper because it's so difficult to be accountable. Especially like people think accountability is all like, oh, I'm never going to do anything wrong. The real work of accountability is acknowledging that you have done harm to yourself and to others and still stay in love, still stay in connection with yourself,
Wow.
still be kind with yourself, to see yourself with loving eyes, not in scrutiny and judgment, which the world is, that's where we think behavior comes from. That if you're in fear and you judge people, that's going to change the behavior. And look at the way the world is now. It's letting there to be context that somebody can understand why they behaved a certain way or why they took the actions that they did.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially for compassion for yourself, because when you start having compassion for who you are as a person, you're able to have compassion for other people. So it does spread around, and
Mm-hmm,
that's important. But I like what you said about how you still have love for yourself despite what you've done in the past. And
mm-hmm,
that's the way to move forward and really to heal, because there's no need to dwell. If you've already been able to take that accountability and use it to further yourself in a better way. So I think that's how I took it.
mm-hmm.
Now,
And
I have,
I just want to put something, because some people can take it offensive that, well, you're telling me I'm dwelling and I'm trying to do this, but it's not working. It's like,
mm,
well, if you're dwelling, there's some emotions that are trying to surface that you're not allowing yourself to feel. So it's activating more fear because it doesn't feel safe to go underneath. Like fear and anger are the bodyguard. And most times it's that we feel helpless and we don't even know how to articulate that. And we don't know how to allow it to have space. We're helpless all the time. Like we don't have control over the planet and all the things that go on, yet we don't know how to articulate it. And either we try to repress it or we freeze in it rather than just allow it to have space, yet still take action when we can integrate the two. So if you are looping and you're like, oh, this, it's like you're in a groundhog day. This thing is still repeating. This thing is still repeating. And I don't know how to come out of this loophole. It's gives me a sense that there's some emotions that are trying to come up that you haven't connected into, and they're being pushed back down.
fair enough. Now, on your podcast, Lift Oneself, you hold space for raw healing. What's a recent episode or moment that really moved you and why?
There's so many. There's not one that I can say because I've held space for so many different people that I got to, be a witness to the depth of work that some people have gone through in pain, and they still
Mm.
choose kindness. They still
Mm.
choose gentleness, where it's like, where did you get that warrior work to do that? And
Yeah.
I'm honored that I can hold that safe space to listen to these kinds of stories and see, the depths of darkness that some humans have gone through, and they're still choosing to do their light and doing the work. Because some people, they've had secure attachments. Those that have not had secure attachments and have gone through pain, and to constantly have to regulate their nervous system, it's exhausting. It's really, really exhausting. So, holding space for those that have gone through suicidal ideation and not knowing, the mental struggles that some people go through because of what's going on internally. It's an honor to hold that space and let them feel validated in that, and seeing that, oh, there's other things that are possible within. So there's not just one that has there's so many different ones and so many different subject matters that I've gone through, that I'm honored to still be doing this podcast.
I understand that. So, for anyone still living in survival mode that wants to move out of it but doesn't know where to begin, what's one gentle step that they can take today?
As I said, journal. They can do the mindful moment that we just did. They can come back to it and start doing their breath exercise to regulate their nervous system, dancing. They can reach out to me if they want to see if they want to do some of the work or join the emotional sobriety workshop. They can listen to podcasts like you that validate themselves, and they can be more curious about seeing their strength, not their weaknesses. We're ingrained to always be in correction mode and becoming and be productive. Where are you taking time to appreciate yourself? Where are you taking time to reflect on your landscape and be proud of where you are? You may not be where you would like to be, yet are you taking the time to appreciate all the terrain that you've gone through and where you are right now? And you can be in such a totally different position. I don't think we take enough time to appreciate ourselves. And so doing the journaling, the dancing, the finding podcasts like this, doing that mindful moment, like I said, which is a form of meditation, those are all things that can start to recognize and acknowledge the survival mode.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words and that advice, actually. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing all your insights and inspiring stories as well, because I learned so much. And I must say, I do feel a shift because of this conversation that we've had. I feel out, I feel the word is validated, right? I feel seen. And I say that because I've done this work, and it's work that I didn't know that I had to do to be this person now. I feel like healing your nervous system leads you to alignment. I feel very aligned with my life now. I feel very in tune. I feel very calm. I remember times when my mind would run and I would feel so anxious and so unhappy, or times when I'll pick up people's energies and try to help them regulate. No, I'm so glad I have emotional boundaries now. I'm so glad that I'm able to be relaxed, and I'm able to be a safe space for other people, whereas I wasn't before. So I'm thankful. Thank you for allowing me to know how far I've come, or giving me the mirror to see how far I've come and acknowledging that. And thank you for educating my listeners, because they are on their journey as well. And I'm really sure that they feel like a part of them has returned home to themselves just from listening to this episode. So thank you once more. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we leave?
Yeah. I want to thank you for the space that you're curating and the work. You know, you've alchemized the impurities and you've turned them into gold, yet you haven't kept that gold for yourself. You're sharing it with others that they can see where this home is and they can better understand themselves. It's the alchemists. You know, we think it's all outside of ourselves and we're not taught, oh, it's within us. We don't think that we have this worth and this power, yet it is inside us. And if
Yeah.
anything resonated, you know, on this conversation and somebody wants to reach out, they can reach out on my website, which is liftoneself.com. And they can come on my podcast also and listen to certain insights and certain guests that they can see that there's such a bigger world than just what we're limited to. And there's different ways to navigate and regulating that nervous system. So always remembering to be kind with yourself and also remembering to take time to appreciate yourself and to, you know, slow down a bit. Like we
Yeah.
got to remember time is a currency and we have to see how are we spending that currency, and we're allowed to spend it on ourselves and feel that joy and feel that openness. So thank you,
Yes.
everything that you do, Viv.
Oh, thank you so much for that, honestly. And it's my pleasure. My pleasure to curate, my pleasure to hold space, to bring people that are aligned with my message and my values on the podcast, and to share with my listeners. So thank you as well. And listeners, if you really, really enjoyed this episode, I suggest that you go to Natalie's website and her podcast, and also leave a review and a comment on our social media pages. And if you'd love more tips, just let me know and I can actually push you towards more resources. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Natalie. See you next time. Take care. Bye.